Sanford was at two tea parties earlier today. He joins us live. Good evening, Governor. And where were the two parties you went to, sir?
Went to one in Columbia, South Carolina, and another one this evening in Charleston, South Carolina. And your coverage was very much on point in that this is just absolutely amazing to watch unfold, in that there is a genuine frustration, a genuine concern, a genuine angst that seems to be erupting across this country.
Governor, how do we know this is not just sort of the enthusiasm of a one-time deal? Like, this is tax day, April 15th. People get all, people can get excited about a particular day. I mean, is this going to carry on beyond today, do you think?
Well, time will tell. But what I saw was a level of energy that I've not seen at any point over the last 15 years that I've been involved in politics on the anti-spending side and on the anti-big growth of government side. So, it's really in the hands of these different volunteers and these different, spontaneous combustions that we've seen erupt across this country as to whether or not they'll continue to stay engaged. But if they do, there are going to be some changes coming our way, because that kind of people pressure over time, over sustained time, can make a real difference in the world of politics.
Governor Perry has been on the record, and he said that he felt that the federal government was oppressive towards his state, the state of Texas. Is that how you would describe the federal government vis-a-vis your state, or not?
Well, we've had quite a fight in South Carolina on the stimulus, take it all versus not, and the Democratic National Committee has run ads against me. There have been a number of different things trying to get us to take it in its entirety, and we at this point have said no. But what I would say, as to Rick Perry's point, is that there's something wrong when the federal government says this is the way you got to do it. Federalism is based on the idea of there being 50 different states out there, each one having a little bit different opinion and a little bit different need as to the way that things ought to be done. And so the idea that the federal government is totally prescriptive and saying you got to spend every dime of the stimulus money and you got to spend it this way is at odds with what has made this country great over time, which is different states trying different programs and coming up with a way that works best in your neck of the woods.
What do you think is a realistic effect of these tea parties? I mean, if you go back in time to like the war protests of the late 60s, early 70s, it had an impact on at least, changing public opinion and pushing us perhaps out of Vietnam earlier. Is that a possibility that the tea parties today could evolve in a much more forceful movement than simply a one-day protest?
I think so, because again, I myself was genuinely surprised at the number of people. When I stepped out onto the state capitol steps in Columbia, when I stepped out onto the customs building in Charleston, which is a historical building, and look at the street completely covered with folks, in both instances I was completely surprised at the number of people out there. And so, yeah, I think that if people stay at this, they're tapping into something that is real, and it's, again, up to them as to whether or not they stay engaged. But if they do, I think in the same way that you saw those war protests make a difference with regard to what happened in Vietnam, you're going to see this thing take hold as a genuine backlash to the amount of spending and the amount of stimulus that seems to be coming out of Washington, D.C., all predicated on issuing more debt to solve a problem that was created by too much debt.
Isn't much of this dependent, though, sir, on whether or not President Obama's packages, the stimulus packages, actually work? Like, if the economy gets going, if it gets traction, if he's on the right path, then does that sort of undermine the whole idea of fighting the stimulus bill and fighting sort of the federal government get off our back that the state is saying?
It would, but again, I think that if economic history is any guide, that will unfortunately not prove to be the case. Everybody wants a better and stronger economy, but the idea of printing a bunch of money that you don't have as a way of, quote, stimulating the economy is at odds with economic reality, and it's at odds with economic history. A place like Argentina tried this in the 1920s. It was disastrous for the currency. In the Weimar Republic between World War I and World War II in Germany, disastrous for the currency. If you look at Zimbabwe right now, printing money that you don't have has been disastrous for their economy. So economic history would suggest that this probably won't work out so well.
Any idea how many people were at the two tea parties you attended? I mean, we tried to do some crowd guessing, but we were painfully unable to do it here. How about in South Carolina? Can you estimate your numbers there?
I'm bad at guessing numbers, so I'll say look it up in the state paper website or the Charleston Post and Courier website, and they'll have some number. But certainly over 1,000 folks in each place. And for South Carolina, those are very good-sized crowds.
What's the reception that you had personally? Because you're rejecting the money to your state, and while that might be very helpful to your state in the short run, at least as I understand it, you think it's a bad idea for the long run because it puts your state in other financial issues down the road. But what's the reaction you got, sir?
It was very encouraging. I'm not to say that we were vindicated by any stretch of the imagination on the stand that my administration has taken and you know, weathered to some degree over the last couple of weeks. But there were a lot of people very, very warm to the position that we've staked out. And what it told me, and this is very encouraging, is that I'm not alone in the stand that I've taken, that there are a lot of people, there is that silent majority of folks that are busy getting themselves to and from work, getting their kids to and from soccer practice, that are genuinely concerned about the ramifications in terms of the value of our currency, in terms of future inflation, and in terms of the growth and scale of our government, both at the federal and state local level, that are really beginning to make their voice heard. And so I got a very warm reception, and for that I was most appreciative of the encouragement that it offered both to me and to the administration that is the one here in South Carolina.
Well, it'll be interesting tomorrow to sort of assess, to look back today to see when we get all the numbers in from across the country, from all the local news organizations, to see, you know, what impact, if any, or what the numbers are, people have turned out. Governor, thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for letting me join you.